Hello, Wellness Warriors. I'm really happy to be here talking to you guys this morning. I see there are already some questions that came in. I decided to do a little something different because I had this video and I wanted to share it with you. And I just wanted to put it out this way because I wanted to talk about it afterwards. And so Marilyn is asking about understanding how to know when we're ready to start fasting. And one of the things that I want to point out is that in order for us to know we're ready, we need to be really well settled in our healthy way of eating. And one of the things I mentioned is that so many people are trying to fast starting from the perspective of a normal, high carbohydrate diet where there's no way that you aren't still chasing. But then when we get to the place where we're doing healthy keto like we are, that I'm hoping that most of us are, that we're in a new position now because we're actually able to focus our attention now on how do I feel? And the one thing that I want everyone to get out of the presentation is please focus on how you feel. Because when we do focus on how we're feeling, what we start to see is that it isn't as frustrating to fast when we actually have all the positives so for example, if I'm already on a path to being healthier because I'm not assaulting my body every day with high carbohydrate foods, so all the sugary things that I was eating before, 9 times out of 10, I've already started to have good outcomes. Maybe my weight is improved. Maybe my sleep has improved. So I'm going to have all these benefits. So mental clarity, some pain. My situation was my joint pain dramatically decreased. And so I was feeling amazing after about, I would say, well, it was less than 3 months, that's for sure. And one of the things that I want us to understand is that when our body is already feeling better, it's because it's already started to do repairs. So as we saw, getting 18 hours for some people seems hard. And I think it seems hard because we're not solid enough in our healthy way of eating, right? So Marilyn, what I'm going to say is, first and foremost, allow yourself the time to feel comfortable getting to even 2 meals a day, even 1 meal a day. I didn't do my first fast until I had already been doing 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, like very easily. And so when I did that first 48 hours, it was comfortable. It's another thing I want to point out. When people force themselves to fast, then what often I see happening is that every time the fast is coming up, they're looking at it in this negative way, that it's going to be difficult and, oh man, I'm not going to be able to eat. And even people who are living a keto lifestyle, they have a difficult time because they force themselves into the situation. And so now, even though theoretically they probably could do it in an easier way, the mindset around it now has been tarnished, right? Because now we're thinking this is just going to be this horrible thing. And if something is horrible, right? If something is horrible, we just don't want it. So I definitely want you to, the next thing you asked was which approach is best for our particular situation. And I think, and actually I'm realizing right now that part of this question is being cut off and I can't see the whole thing. Just on my screen. It's nothing to do with how you put it in. But when you ask what for our particular situation, I'm going to need to just adjust my screen here. But what I'm going to say for most of us doing healthy keto, doing healthy carnivore even, and low carb, if what I'm doing, so you said understand when it's ready and which approach is best for, okay. So, if I'm trying to start fasting from keto or carnivore, I think is what I said earlier. I think the best way to get into this is slowly. Take your time. That's the best thing you can ever do. Because if you slowly transition into doing a keto lifestyle, you're going to have an easier time of it. So Tracy has a question too. What do you take when you get a cold, or in my case, a virus? The virus. Okay. Many take cough syrups. I take nothing. When I have a cold, I let my cold. Now I have to be honest though. That's been something that's always been my story. I've not been a person who ever took anything because I just don't like taking medication. And if you're not new here, you know that I just don't like taking medication. So it's not a matter of this being because of anything to do with keto. Now, that being said, what I will say is that taking honey, I don't believe is a great idea. Taking cough syrups, I don't believe is a great idea because both of them are high in sugar. And the problem that I see there is that when I will take anything that has sugar in it, I'm again like getting this big influx of sugar into my body, which is not great for me. Like if we're eating healthy and we understand the impact of sugar on our diet, then we need to just accept that anything that's high in sugar, even if it temporarily is making me feel better, I'm trading coughing or like whatever I'm trading for taking this thing that's giving me a moment. So how long will it last? Will it last half an hour? Right? So now if you have a fever and your fever's not going away, that's a different story. But if we're just talking about a cold, and even when I had the virus, I didn't take anything. I lived through my fevers. That was my decision because I felt strong enough, healthy enough. I mean, by that point, when I got it the first time, I had already been a good 3.5 years of keto. I just felt like I was going to be fine. And then, and each of the times, I think I've had it twice. And I just let my body go through what my body was going through because I knew that my body would be successful. We all need to take our decisions, Wellness Warrior. So, but for myself, I think anytime there's a high sugar content in something, it basically equals Violet doesn't take that. So, it's been a while since you caught it. I'm going to double check now to see if so I've turned on Q&A. If you guys put question marks in your questions, I should be able to see them. I don't see any yet, which is interesting to me because I do know some people did put question marks. So maybe it's not working properly. That's too bad. I was hoping this would make the process a little bit easier today. So let's see here. So Sing It said, what about fasting specifically? And I don't know if you have to click the Q&A to add your questions to it. It's the first time I'm using this. So there's a Q&A at the very top. Maybe you guys need to click it to add your questions to it. That also might be a thing. I'm just going to say that out loud. So Sing It asked, what about fasting specifically for an illness like cancer? When diagnosed, may or may not be ready, but just be hungry. Okay, until your body accepts, or carnivore until body adjusts, then fast. So actually, this is a very interesting question. I saw some research about this, and this research is not even new. This is going back a good number of years that I saw this. I think it was when I first started investigating keto, as a matter of fact. And what had happened was that they were trying to see if they could use fasting. I'm pretty sure it was fasting. Yeah. To help people, and low carb. And so it was a lot of things, but what I do remember of it was the fasting part, because they were able to show decrease in the chemo symptoms by using the fasting, which I thought was fascinating. I wish I could remember what the name of the study was. Oh man, I wish and what was interesting about it was that the lady that was doing the study had some kind of specific reason for wanting to know how cancer patients would react to fasting. Because this is the other piece of the puzzle, is that a lot of times when unfortunately, when we're diagnosed with cancer and then we're going through treatments, people don't want to eat anyways, and they push them to eat. So I think that this person was trying to figure out, are we pushing them to eat to their detriment? Anyways, it was fascinating. And so, long story short, I believe that it would have a positive impact to a point, obviously, because at some point your body will need to start rebuilding. And at that point, it's going to be looking for building blocks, right? Now, the other thing that I wonder about is like, and we don't have any data on this yet, but like, how will the rates of cancer be impacted by more and more of us putting down all the garbage and eating better? Because one of the things that we know about cancer is that it needs sugar to sustain itself often, right? That's like, as a matter of fact, that's how they find cancer in the body, right? They give you radioactive isotopes of sugar. And of course, the parts of your body that's grabbing it the most is usually the cancer cells. So like, I do think that we're going to be able to see where, well, I'm wondering, will we see that more people doing keto and carnivore and low carb equals less cancer cases as time goes by? And that would be really good for us. It will be frustrating to companies, but I mean, at the end of the day, we need to care more about us than the companies. So Thomas Hughes, thank you for reminding people to like and share. I do appreciate that. Hello, Cindy Hunter from Utah. Wow. Okay. Hello, Kathy. And let's see. Do I have another question? Did I miss a question? Tracy. Okay. No, it's fine. So tarnished mindset. Yes, that's crux of many difficulties. Not many questions I can see today. So I'm not sure if it's because we don't have many questions about fasting, or if it's just because we don't have any questions at all today. So I'll give it a few more seconds, but what I want to say is that obviously fasting is amazing, and I'm not in any way saying that people shouldn't fast. I think we should all be fasting. I think from Dr. Ekberg's statement that we need at the minimum 18. So if we're not doing, a bit more than that, then we have to start to ask ourselves, what is the what's the impact, right? Because I'm doing 12 hours, I'm doing 16 hours, but we need 18 to start to get into the benefits. Am I doing those 12 to 18 hours easily? If I'm doing 12 hours easily, okay. I mean, I'm not getting all the benefits, but if it's easy for me, but is it long enough, right? Am I allowing those 2 meals to be too wide apart? This is the other thing that I want to point out is I've met a lot of people doing 2 meals a day and 2 reasonable meals, like 2 healthy, low, keto or carnivore meals, but they're splitting them so far apart that they're not realizing that if we just push those a little closer together, then we would be getting the benefits of fasting versus if I'm having them 12, 10, even 8 hours apart, I'm not getting the real benefit of fasting that I could be getting. When we put ourselves to be having either 2 smaller meals closer together or 1 big meal, sometimes we're going to be living a good 5 hours of good, autophagy, apoptosis, going to have more human growth hormone and the other one that he mentioned in the video. We are actually giving our body the best tools it needs to heal us and to, like getting rid of the problems in the brain that we're all developing just from living, right? Like when you live in a house and you clean it up and then you walk around and you do things, even if you put everything away all the time, at some point you need to clean that floor again. At some point you need to clean those surfaces again, right? Even if you wash every dish immediately, at some point that sink is going to be dirty. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Because we also have to understand that we're in a world where there's particles in the air and things, right? So just because I'm not throwing pasta or, chicken on the floor doesn't mean that the floor isn't dirty, right? And we need to understand that just because I'm eating all the right things, I'm not putting pasta in here, but I'm putting chicken in here. So yeah, my body has to break it down. And in those processes, sometimes things go wrong. And my body will clean it up if it has the time. And that's where giving our body the time, right? So even with it, when it comes to the virus, it is interesting to me, anecdotal, no evidence, like no research evidence to back this up at all. But it is interesting to me how many people that I've spoken to who got it, like myself, who, yes, you felt sick, but it wasn't the emergency that people who were eating a normal diet were living. It didn't last as long as the people who were eating a normal diet said it lasted. Although, and how much quickly, or at least for myself, anyways, I can say this, from having it the first time to having it the second time, even though theoretically the second time I had it was a worse version, that I felt better faster. Very interesting. So these are all things to me that make me just wonder, like, are we aware that there's positives to eating properly? There's positives that we don't even realize we're not getting, because we're so used to. So these other people that are just living a normal life are so used to eating in that way, they don't see that benefit. That I healed faster. So push that forward. If I'm fasting, do I notice a difference in how many colds per year I get? Do I notice a difference in how quickly I recover from my colds when I'm fasting? Right? The one thing that I've absolutely stopped doing is like thinking about, and so like if my kids are sick even, it's like the last thing I'm doing is offering them something to eat. It's like if they come and say, oh, I'm hungry, that means it's time for you to eat. And if they don't ask for food while they're sick, it's because they're not ready to eat yet, because their body is trying to manage them being sick. I thought I saw another question pop in. Hold on. Oh, I saw. Hello, Lynn. I'm not sure if I saw your name earlier. And Yakub, hello, how are you doing? I'm not sure if would that be like Jacob? Anyway, from Johannesburg, South Africa. That's cool. Hello, Mandel. How are you doing? Great movie with references to different styles of fasting called Fasting on the Gaia Network. Fasting with Chemo. Extended fasting. I don't know if that would made it been the I don't know. I don't remember what it was called, but that's very interesting that you saw one as well. So I have a question from Mona D. Hello. Should diabetics be cautious when fasting? What kind of things should we look out for? Diabetics. I'm trying to think what would make a diabetic need to be more cautious than someone who's not diabetic. Just give me a second here. I can't think of a reason. The things that I tell people to look out for are signs that your body wants food. So for example, and so it's your body, not your mind. We have to make that distinction, because when I smell something that tastes delicious, I might have a thought of eating it, but am I actually hungry? And those are two different things, right? So what I ask people to think about first and foremost, if I get the signal of hunger, there's always two reasons I might be getting it. I might be getting it because I'm actually hungry, and I might be getting it because I'm thirsty, because my body only has one signal to give me, right? So the first thing I tell people to do is drink some water. So if I drink, and I'm not talking about 3 gallons of water, I'm talking about a glass of water, right? So if I drink some water and then 10 minutes later I'm not hungry, chances are I was just thirsty. That's part one. So, but if I feel hungry and I drink some water and it doesn't go away, right? Then yeah, probably that means that I should be eating something because my hunger didn't go away. Now I will say that for most of us, we're fully aware that we can cycle in and out of being hungry, and we do it at work all the time. So, Mona, I'm actually wondering, have you ever been at work and trying to, do things, and because of the way your day was going, you were unable to eat when you were supposed to eat, and then therefore missed lunch, for example? I know that that's happened to me so many times. So, that's part of the reason I'm thinking, unless your doctor is telling you, oh my God, you could never let it happen that you miss a meal. Unless you've heard that said to you, I can't imagine why you wouldn't be able to fast. So it's a question. These are all question marks. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of talking this through with you right now, how I would think about it if I was diabetic and I wanted to fast. So that's part one. But going back to something I said earlier is, how do I make fasting as easy as I possibly can? And the way that I would make fasting as easy as I possibly can for myself would be to start from a place of eating and only eating when I'm hungry. So there's two things that I'm going to look at there. If I actually have weight to lose, then I already know that I have more than enough energy on my body to fuel me for a few months. And I can still do that right now sitting here at my goal weight. I have enough energy that if I didn't get any food for a few months, I'd be fine, right? As long as there's water available, I'd be fine. Obviously I would lose weight, but I would be fine. So what that tells me then is that at this stage where and I'm not saying I would be happy about it, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I wouldn't pass. Make sure I say that clearly, right? So if I'm sitting here with the ability to go a few months, then obviously I can go a day or two. That's the logic that I use. So if I'm starting from a position where I'm overweight, then I can go a day or two. So now the question is, what would be blocking me from being able to do that? What would cause my body to look for food? And for sure, the number one thing is I'm not used to it. So if I'm used to eating even before I'm hungry, then what's going to happen is that supper time is going to happen, and I'm going to have all these pulls towards getting food, and they're going to be real pulls. And those real pulls are going to be very hard for the average person to just say, I'm not eating. So because that can happen to us, what I would rather you do is, let's not start with fasting. Let's even see, can I just learn to only eat when I'm actually hungry? And so how would I know I'm actually hungry? Because I get hungry, but the hungry doesn't go away, right? So for example, like I said, I could be at work and, back in my normal eating times, maybe it was like I was in a meeting and I would get this little, I could go for something right now. Right? And it felt like hunger. It's coming from, my stomach, and it felt like hunger. But then I'm in a meeting. I can't just get up and leave the meeting. So I wouldn't leave. And then by the time the meeting is over, I no longer have that feeling. I'm no longer thinking about it. And I am able to wait until lunchtime to eat my meal back then. So what did that tell me? Was I actually hungry? No, because if I was actually hungry, which has happened to me too, let's say those days where maybe I didn't have any breakfast, or maybe even I had already missed lunch that day, and now we're in an afternoon meeting, and right? And in those situations, yes, hunger is going to come back to me, and it's going to stay with me a little while, right? Now, it's still going to go away, which is the fascinating part of this, is that I didn't sit there hungry and falling over for the 20 minutes of the meeting. It did go away still. But very likely when I left the meeting, it kind of came back more quickly because I was actually hungry. So we're going to cycle in and out of these kind of things. And I think what becomes really interesting when you get to a certain stage is you'll start to see where even though I used to wake up in the morning and be hungry, now I'm waking up in the morning, not hungry yet, especially if we're eating healthy. The healthier you eat, the fewer times your body's going to send you running for food because you don't have that sugar that it's constantly pulling out of the system and then you need to go replace, right? That is so important. It's so important. So going back to, is it safe for diabetics to fast? Well, if I'm following my hunger, if I'm minimizing the carb that I eat, if I'm doing all the healthy things, you're very likely going to see that you do go from 3 meals and 3 snacks a day. And the first step I would want you to make, please, is just 3 meals. If I can go from 6 things I'm eating to 3 things I'm eating, you've already improved your life so much when it comes to diabetes because you're not spiking your insulin every few hours. So if you just did that one thing, I know that would be the first thing that I would do if I was pre-diabetic or diabetic, or, well, it was the first thing I did when I realized that I was insulin resistant, is snacks were gone, eliminated, no more snacking. Now, by doing that, insulin spikes cut in more than half because I was also doing 2 meals a day very quickly from the beginning. And why was I doing 2 meals a day? Because in my normal life, I was doing 2 meals a day. So I was doing 2 meals a day plus a bunch of snacks. So I started off at 3 meals, went quickly back to 2 meals because breakfast is not a thing for me. And so whatever. So as you're moving forward in this process, and now we're doing 2 meals, how do those meals get closer and closer together? And a lot of the time, at least in my case, what I noticed was that because my goal was I don't start eating till I'm hungry, at some point that moment of being hungry just got pushed further and further back. I am lucky. I work for myself. So I had the ability to eat whenever I felt like it. And so therefore, I could start arranging my meetings so that, now I'm starting to get hungry around that time. I leave that window open. And then, it was like this time, okay, I leave that window open. That was my luck. Now, as it stands, I just don't eat at work. But not everybody has that scenario. Right? Some people have to actually pay attention to a clock. But I think that if you pay attention on the weekend, you start to get a bit of an idea of whether or not you could actually make it to the 1 meal a day. Now, maybe you don't, and you're doing 2 meals a day, as long as those 2 meals are closer together. So if I have lunch and I'm, pushed to have lunch at, let's say, noon because I work in a school and that's lunchtime, then how can I pull my supper hour earlier, right? If I'm going to try to make them closer together. So there are ways to play with it. And I think some schools do have afternoon snack, and maybe we could try to wait and eat our lunch in the afternoon snack. Again, there's ways to play with it, but I think you first and foremost have to have the idea that it's something that you're actually trying to do. If you don't think of it even as something to do, you're not going to be able to do it. And if we just go from eating 3 meals every single day or even 2 meals every single day to fasting, it can be challenging. Doesn't mean it has to be, especially if you're doing carnivore or if you're doing keto. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be challenging, but it can be because you're going from eating and feeling satiated or full, depending on which one you're doing, to feeling hungry and not doing anything about it. So that's a long answer, but Mandel says, any thoughts on the politics of Matthew 17:21 not being in a modern Bible translation? Is that food industry? I don't know what you're talking about, Matthew 17:21. You'd have to give me more details on that, Mandel, because I don't know my Bible verses that quickly off the top of my head. This kind of goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Oh, is that the verse? Kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. So, if I'm understanding that well, it's basically talking about how in order for us to be successful, we have to remember to pray and fast. If I'm right, but I feel like there's a lot of places, as Dr. Berg pointed out in the video, where fasting is touched on. Is now in the video I said that they didn't talk about it from the perspective of dieting, which they don't. But I did find it interesting that it was educational and it was healing, right? And there's so many of us who we've not been encouraged to leave the food alone. And I'll say something else. So there's a lot of religious fasting that happens, and they don't involve their children in the religious fasting. So the adults will fast and the kids will not. But one thing that I will point out, and I don't know if any of the parents that are in here can pipe in if you've seen this, but one thing that I've noticed is that when kids are playing, and let's remember that playing is how children learn, right? They are engaging with their world, they're engaging with each other, they're learning. When kids are playing, often we have to pull them away for food. And I feel like it's a mistake we make, that we try to force them to eat at specific times rather than following their rhythms. Because very likely what we would see is that first of all, they are going to come get food at some point. But second of all, that they would be overall, I think, in my opinion, smarter and more socially involved and aware, because they wouldn't be constantly putting all of their energy and attention on food. They'd be putting it in the right place. Education, social education, and expanding themselves. I feel like we pull them away from what's healthy for them and sit them in front of plates of, pasta and sandwiches and stuff that's not even healthy. And then we're confused and concerned later when they don't do well. But I'm sure that I have lots of parents in here who can talk about the fact that, yes, we had to drag our kids away from playing. Anyways, the question, do I do dry fasts? Let's see. So I have dry fasted. Let's see. It's probably the one time, Lynn, that I got to pretend that I made it past 5 days. Because when you dry fast, it counts as more than one day. I know for sure. Is it 2 or is it 3? I can't remember. But when I did my math, because I did a dry, my first day was dry, and then I did a normal, and I got past the 7-day mark. So I did, but did I really? Yes, I did do it. And when you dry fast, really what that means is that you're having no liquids at all, but you're also not taking a shower or anything. Like, you're just not getting water on you at all. So that's why I could only do it one day, because I did it the first day, because I started my fast after my shower. So I was like, yep, okay. So bang, I'm starting from here. So, but it's 0 liquids, right? So it was, it had to be on the weekend. Like, you have to have the right conditions to do a dry fast. So that being said, I'm going to just say that, the other kind of fasting that we can do is with liquids. I don't consider there being any other kind of fast as I can think about it. As I mentioned in the video, all these permutations that they try to say are fasting, I don't believe are fasting, because if you're ingesting food, that's not fasting. If you're ingesting energy, right? So one of the things that Dr. Ekberg talks about, there's a Dr. Ekberg? Might have been another doctor I was watching, but it's the processing. Your intestines, when they start processing something, that has an impact. So it stalls the process of being all these other healthy processes, because your body's processing food. So I know that there's some people that talk about fat fasting, and they kind of say that because fat is so easily processed, it's barely pausing anything. But if I just pay attention to what Dr. Ekberg said, your body is in a position where it's going from zero, like little small percentages of gluconeogenesis. But so I don't know when my body starts processing fat, like for example, the human growth hormone, does it stop being produced? The neurotropic factor thing he was talking about, does that stop being produced? So all these processes that my body is doing, if I allow fat in, does it stop doing the processes? So this is where I'm not sure. From my understanding, as long as you're in your gastrointestinal tract, your intestines, everything is working, it means that these other things have stopped. That was my understanding from science and school and whatever. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What I do know is that if it takes 18 hours from the time that the food has passed through me to get to that, right? So that, then do I have enough time? And it would seem to me, if I'm eating fat in between, I technically wouldn't have enough time. This is part of the reason I don't even take supplements, because like if I would drink that in between instead of drinking just like stuff that doesn't need processing. Now maybe coffee still needs processing. I don't even know. So these are all question marks, Wellness Warrior. I feel like I would love for a doctor to give us a bit more information on fat fasting. And if there is a video, I would love for you guys to point out to me on fat fasting versus like just water and like plain teas, plain coffees. So I was understanding that those don't have an impact because there's nothing to process, because it's just kind of passing through. But maybe I'm wrong. But I definitely know because our body uses fat, then therefore, yes, there's going to be something to process there. Now I'm thinking about it. As I say it out loud, I'm starting to get back up on myself, because coffee apparently still has some polyphenols and so different lectins and different things in it that your body would theoretically need to deal with. So as I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking maybe that's also disrupting the fasting as well. There's so much information. And I think that we need to be curious, and we need to be willing to answer these questions towards finding the solutions that we're trying to find. And so, yeah, that's a good question, Lynn, because now you've got me wondering what other kind of fasts there are, and should I be concerned about coffee, tea, right? Fatty coffees, all these things. So, and if you're specifically fasting for weight loss, if you're specifically fasting for cleanup in your body, then you definitely need to know what the impact of these things are going to be, because you might be blocking your cleanup from happening without knowing it. Now, again, if it's just fat, it's probably gonna be less blocking than if you actually ate a sandwich, obviously. But you might be thinking you're doing more than you're actually doing. In the video that I did with Dave, one of the things that he talked about was how Dr. Chaffee and him had a conversation, and it seemed like Dr. Chaffee was saying that he did. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Dave said that he got the impression that he did 20 years of body cleanup in a year because he was so focused on only eating meat. And so again, meat is very easy to digest. Fat is very easy to digest. If I'm only eating meat, I'm leaving my body, after it quickly digests what I ate, so much time to clean up the system, right? To get his neurons back in order and to get his arthritis under control. I had the same experience, right? Just taking the carb count down, and I can't even say that I was at keto numbers for the first few weeks, because I didn't understand what I had to do to get to keto numbers. And still, within 3 months, my hip inflammation that was causing me to walk like an old person was gone, right? So I can say like an old person because I am an old person now, so that's okay. But it was gone, right? And I feel like we don't even realize how small amounts of carbohydrates cause huge problems. So seeing it says Matthew 17:21 was taken out because it was added by more modern Bible copyists that advocated fasting, not older manuscripts. I really don't know. So, let's see. Are there questions? Are there going to be more Pat chats? Brent, hello. And yes, I have one that I'm supposed to be, it's getting edited, and I need to edit basically. And, yes, Pat and I have been we just need to find good topics, and also Pat's job has become quite demanding. But yes, we do want to do more Pat chats. So I'm happy when he watches this later on, because he's not in here right now. He'll be very happy to know that you asked about him, Brent. So Mona D says that she does forget to eat when she's engrossed in a project, and my body signals me usually a headache. Yes. So if I get a headache, that's another signal that maybe it's time to stop fasting, right? And so one of the things that I would be looking for you to think about, so you actually are already getting signals that your body's looking for food. And I remember I used to get headaches all the time when I was eating standard diet. Part of the reason that happens is because when you're eating standard diet and you're low in sugar, because again, your body, as you eat sugar, your body starts putting it away. But if you eat a lot of sugar, that's mostly what your brain is using. When we transition to having your brain be able to work off ketones, which is actually, according to Dr. Bickman, was it? Or Dr. Nadir, I think it was Dr. Nadir, the preferred fuel of the brain is ketones, according to him. So when we transition, then when we don't eat, our brain always has access to ketones. So once we've created the story where our brain is getting access to ketones and we're low carb enough, so that means low carb, if you're able to do it on low carb or keto or carnivore, we're at that level where our brain is able to get access to these ketones. Then when we don't eat, our brain so we don't get headaches as often because our brain is able to get their energy anyways. And actually it's mostly using ketones at that point, with a small portion of it using carbohydrates. So these are things that, again, we can actually solve by eating healthier. Hello, Tanya. Tanya Reynolds, how are you doing? Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, that's true. If you're diabetic and you're on insulin medication and then you were to fast, yes, you would have a drop in your blood sugar. Thank you for pointing out. This is why we ask questions, and I ask it, I say, remind people, because these are not things that I'm always thinking about. I am not diabetic. So thank you for pointing that out. Let's see. Peter G. According to Dr. Jason Fung, fasting for diabetics is a great way to control and lower your insulin. Lower insulin responses can help blood sugar control. These are all great answers. Garbage Man, hello. How are you doing? I fasted before I went keto. I could lose weight, but would gain it back. I didn't keep it off until I went keto between fasts. That's an excellent point. Again, all of it's just so crazy to me that people will torture themselves by not eating, because if I'm eating a normal diet, not eating for a day or 2 or 3 is going to feel like torture, and then turn around and eat the same foods that are causing my weight to be high. So I definitely feel that we need to understand how the body works. And as much as I study all of this stuff, still you ask me questions and I have to search so far in my memory, and I'm not always going to come up with example like what Tanya just reminded me of, that yes, of course, if your insulin could drop too low, like anyone who's taking any kind of medication should be changing their diet with the help of a doctor. Now, how easy is it to find a keto-friendly, carnivore-friendly doctor? Depends on where you live. It was funny to me. So I really thought Texas would be a place, because of steaks and all this. I thought Texas would be a place that you should easily find carnivore-friendly doctors, but apparently that's not even the case. So anyways, Singit has a question. Did Canadian weather allow you to be active outside? 63 in Chicago today. Mini tramping outside today. Woohoo. Actually, yes. I've Pat and I are actually playing with a new bit of cold therapy, hot therapy scenarios. And so I think so far the coldest I've gone outside in a t-shirt the other day, it was like 5 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it was 5 degrees Celsius. And we went shopping and we just said no jackets. So we've been playing with this idea. When we ski, we often, although we have long sleeves on when we're skiing, so we have our long sleeves, on base layers. And we go to the car and back and forth. And we're kind of thinking about it. Like, why is it when we're skiing, we can, in the middle of the winter, go to the car and back and forth and pack the car and everything. But yet to walk from the car to the grocery store, we feel we need jackets. So playing with some ideas. And I think it's really about mindset and comfort levels, right? But a better ability to manage cold temperatures has also been associated with increasing brown fat. So these are ideas that we're looking at. Just sharing. Let's see. Do we have more questions? Now, I don't know what 63, I'd have to check that afterwards, but okay. It was 26 degrees last week. Okay, so Peter G, keto is supposed to be a lifestyle, not just one more diet on your journey. I absolutely agree. I think, so here's what's funny to me. The word diet, standard American diet, Canadian diet, like we have these standard Canadian, American, Japanese, and the word diet is used to mean whatever you eat to sustain yourself, and it's also used to mean the thing you do to lose weight or to solve a health issue. The problem that I have is that I think that most people don't realize that the standard American diet is the diet that they're using to maintain. So it's their lifestyle, right? They're maintaining themselves this way, and to their detriment, because it's a very high energy and a high carbohydrate diet that's causing loads of problems. And I feel like part of it is the processed nature that most of us allowed into our lives. And so there's a good, like my mind is still on this idea that had we stayed like vegetables and grains, might we have been in a better situation? I do think so. But recently I've been learning some things about veg, like Dr. Baker's always talking about the phyto whatevers, and I think that lectins and Dr. What's her name? She's not a doctor, but there's this one woman that's always talking about oxalates. And I saw her talk at a conference once. And I feel like there's so much in our food that we just don't understand. We don't understand how it's causing harm to our health. That even though, like, go back in history, 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, and what you see is that, yeah, we were healthier then than we are now. If you go back 100 years, yeah, we were, but so we're living longer now, but through, I want to say, like, band-aids and processes that don't allow the life we're living to be happy. But then we go back in history, we were maybe not living as long, but we were able-bodied and doing stuff and working the farm. And I feel like we could have both. I feel like we could be today living longer because we understand disease better, we understand food better, but still able to work like whether we want to work a farm or we want to just be out playing and skateboarding and doing fun stuff and, like just doing all the activities that we love to do. Which is the other problem that I see, is that we're being taught that as adults, we shouldn't play, right? Like, it's weird if you find an adult who's spending too much time longboarding and skateboarding, right? Like, it's weird if you find well, it's not weird to go golfing, but some people are going to shake their head and say, oh, it's so selfish. It's just, it's only thinking of themselves. But why should we not be able to do these things if we're able-bodied and healthy enough to do them? And so I definitely feel like we need to find a good mix between being like the research knowledge, the knowledge we learned about how the body works, but using it to our advantage so that we end up eating healthier and then having the muscular strength, women and men. Women, we need to be moving more, right? To be able to live our lives and do happy, fun stuff. Oh, thank you for letting me know. 63 is 17. Oh, that's a beautiful temperature. Yeah, I definitely would have been outside if it was 7. Well, we were outside anyways. It was just chillier than that. Okay, I think that was the last question. Yeah, so this was a great conversation, Wellness Warriors. I really enjoyed talking to all of you. And Sing It, Mandel, Lynn, Tanya, like, I love that you guys keep coming back. Last one from me. Okay, Sing It has one more. Did you always enjoy winter sports, being outside playing in the cold? So I'm a Montreal-born person, so I was in the cold from day one. So I always played outside in the cold as a child. And then my parents are from Barbados, so they were not playing outside in the cold. So let me just start there. But like, they let us play outside because, this is what kids do here. So whatever. So we would play outside. But I will say that the thing that I did that helped me to like keep it going was because I had a period of time where I wasn't playing outside. Let's say, you become a teenager and like, I'm not playing outside, right? So I was a teenager till I was in my 20s. And I realized that because I wasn't outside enough, like I wasn't playing anymore, I wasn't enjoying winter anymore. And that's when I started to go skiing. And so my parents obviously didn't go because they're not skiers. They're not outside people in winter. Like they like being inside. So, but me picking up skiing did change everything because I picked up skiing and then I picked up snowblading and then I picked up snowboarding and then right. So like and I took my kids tubing and ice skating and like, so I started to do these things that allowed us to really enjoy winter. And my hope is that they will keep doing it. Like they all ski. And my daughter snowboards. Actually, Jake snowboards too. So like they've all picked up bits and pieces here and there. And because I want them to enjoy wherever they're living. So if we go to a ski vacation, that's great. They can actually have fun. And if we go somewhere hot, like I can manage. I'm not a fan of the hot, by the way. Once it starts getting past 20 degrees in the summer, I'm starting to be annoyed. Oh, okay. So yeah, Kenny's saying that Montreal can be cold during the winter. I don't find it the worst. Like I said, I've learned to enjoy being I want to say in the cold, but it's like you don't even realize it if it's a smooth transition. The one thing I will say I don't like, and this will be, I guess, the dividing factor, I don't like when it's cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot. I like when it just gradually just gets colder, colder, colder until it's cold. And it can go gradually colder till even minus 25, as long as it was gradual. What I don't like is that it was -6 and then -25 and then -10 and then -30. That drives me crazy. That if it can just be a nice gradual and then sit there, I'm cool. And then then it goes back to, in the spring, the same thing. Nice gradual back to warm weather. So 90 degrees. So Toronto's a little warmer. Yes, I do know some people in Toronto and they say it's a bit warmer. I still want to be able to ski though. So wherever I'm going to live, I need there to be skiing and snowboarding. So as long as there's that, I'm going to be fine. And this winter, I have a goal to get out a bit more often to the hill, because last winter I think I went once, which was abysmal since we should have been able to get out there a few more times. So this is the year I think we're back to, a pretty regular schedule if I can pull it together. So even if I just go by myself, I think I used to go skiing by myself. That was a fun activity that I did for myself just because I love it. And if I couldn't find anyone to go with me, I would just go by myself and do a few hours and come home. So yeah, for sure that's happening this year. So thanks again, guys, for the conversation. This was amazing. I look forward to you guys with more questions. If you have more questions, you can put them in the comment section later to talk about how we can be, if you want me to look up anything about fasting. Like I said, it's not my number one focus. So sometimes it's like not the top of mind, but I do know a lot of people want to fast and they find it hard. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the video. So check out the next video, which is about how to make sure that you're eating healthy keto and make it easy for you guys. And I'll talk to you next Monday.